Okay, we're live. I am so excited. This is Voice Notes Live. I'm here with Lizzie Assa from the Workspace for Children. If you don't know me, I am Vanessa Cornell. I am the author of Voice Notes from a Friend. It's a 5-minute audio voice note once a week on whatever is on my mind and might be on yours also. I talk about a lot of different things, but as I am a mother to 5 teenagers, I talk a lot about kids, a lot about parenting, because something has come up every day. And so today we're talking about voice note. I think it's number 7, Confessions of a B+ Mom. And Lizzie is the perfect person to talk to about this. She has a book that is coming out. It's on pre-order, and it is called But I'm Bored.
Shameless plug.
Absolutely. To me, this is the most important conversation we're having right now in parenting. And I can't wait to talk about it because so much of what we're doing to try to be an A+ mom is making us crazy and not helping our kids at all.
At all. Or us.
Or us.
And then it's a vicious cycle.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I was talking to someone I was working with, and she has 5 kids also. And she was at that place, like at the very, very tippy end of her rope. She was like clinging with her fingernails to the end of her rope. She was like imploding inside. And I said, my prescription for you is you need to get a B+ at parenting because you are working so hard for your A+, because this is how we've been conditioned, right? We all want the great, we all want the great grade. We all want to be like, I want to be the best mom I can be. And it was killing her. But I want you to talk about what it's doing to our kids because it is the opposite of what we're trying to achieve.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I think people come into it with the best of intentions. I mean, it's wanting to have an A+ as a mom is pure love,
Yeah.
But, what we end up doing is burning ourselves out. And then we can't be the mom we want to be for our kids. And, the other day I was thinking about this because my youngest, I have 3 kids. My oldest is a freshman in college. My youngest is in middle school. And my youngest was having a Halloween party. And I feel like as a mom of a freshman in college, like I'm newly feeling this like really intense passage of time, right? And it's brought me back actually to starting to try to be an A+ mom again. And I thought I'd recovered from that, right?
Yeah.
But now I'm like, oh my gosh, I only have this much time left with my girls and I have to do everything perfectly. And I had this like moment where I was like, whoa, nope. There was a reason I stopped doing this in the first place. And, my youngest was having a little Halloween party. And I found myself, the point of the Halloween party was for her to gather her friends and for me to be present with them and let her be the star. And suddenly we're setting up for the Halloween party. And I'm saying, this should be here. This would look better here. This would be more fun. And I just stopped for a minute and I was like, nope. That's the old way. That's how I used to do things. What I do now is what's really important to you. This is your moment. This is your party. You're allowed to make a mistake. You're allowed to make it less fun because you had an idea, you know? And I think we're really just getting in the way of our kids when we can't make room for them to be less than perfect because it reflects on us.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I really think that one of the greatest gifts of having 5 kids is that you just don't have the energy to make everything perfect, right? Like, I think I'm a better mom to 5 than I would have been to 2 because my instinct was to be like, I have done everything just so my whole life in school, in work, and like, this is my new job, and let me do it like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I just couldn't. I simply couldn't. And so, but you talk about how it reflects on us. I remember going out of the house with kids with mismatched clothes and stains on their clothes. And there's that feeling as a mom where you're like, I'm going to be judged.
Yeah.
I'm going to be judged for that. And then I got over it. And then my kids, I have one daughter who was like, she went to preschool and she took her little like tulle skirt and put it on her head. And she was like, Mommy, it's a veil. And I was like, it's a veil. You go,
Yeah.
girl. And we walked into preschool, this very buttoned up preschool on the Upper East Side. And the lovely teacher said to me in a lovely way, I see she dressed herself today. And it wasn't a criticism. It was
Mhm.
a celebration. I was like, yes, she did.
That's right. That's
But
right.
I'm sure walking down the street, parents were like people are like, "Who's that mom with the kid with the veil on her head?" You
But I
know?
think, like, the best thing we can do as parents, right, is be really aware of, like, what are our values and are we living those values?
Yeah.
So, because that helps us take care of like, I remember I used to let my kids climb trees and, like, climb the fence, like, at the softball game, and the other parents were like, "Don't do that." Like, that
Yeah.
you could get hurt, whatever. And I would have to be like, like, they are gonna judge me because I look like I'm being irresponsible or I just don't wanna tell my kids no, when in actuality, to me, I felt like, gosh, I love that my son is climbing that tree barefoot. That feels really important to me. That's really aligned with my values as a parent, right? And so then I could let go of, like, the people who disagree.
Yeah, I mean, I let my kids walk around New York City when they were, like, 8, 9 years old. Now they were going, like, around the corner to the toy store. I knew where they were. I knew the toy store people, but people I know were like, "You did what? You
Yes.
allowed them to do what?"
I
You know?
remember teaching my kids at a very young age when people would say, like, "Where is your mom?" Saying, "My mom knows where I am. Thank you for checking."
Yeah,
End of conversation.
totally. So when the kids were little, you know, I kind of thought, I have 5 toddlers or 5, young kids. I can't have them in different activities. I
Yeah.
can't. I just physically can't. I can't get them all the right places, and so I bought them a trampoline. And I remember people saying, like, "That is the most irresponsible thing you could do as a parent," because if you talk to any ER doctor, they'll say the number one thing you should not buy your kids is a trampoline, and I was like, "Valid. Valid point." However, the kids would be in the trampoline and sometimes they would be jumping, but sometimes they'd just be in there. Fast forward, I would be like, "What are you guys doing?" And they were like, "Oh, well, we made this game." And they made up all the rules, and everyone had a role, and everyone had a job, and I was like, "I made the right decision. That is
Yeah.
maybe the best thing that they could possibly be doing." And then I held my breath and crossed every digit that no one was gonna bonk heads in the trampoline, but it brings up this, part of it that I think is this unconscious thing that makes it very hard for us to do this, which is fear.
Yep.
This fear where we're like, "I'm so afraid that something bad is gonna happen to my kid because it
And that's
could."
so valid, you
Of
know?
course, because it
Fear
could. Yeah,
and guilt. Fear and guilt to me are the big 2 that I really try to not make parenting decisions from that place. So if I am making a big decision and it's coming from a place of fear or guilt, I know I need to stop for a minute and, like, take a step back and say, "I need a minute to think about it."
yeah,
Because I mean, listen, sometimes that's your instincts talking and that's not a bad thing,
yeah.
but oftentimes it's not. It's just fear and guilt.
And I actually think most guilt is fear. Right? Like, most mom guilt, I think, is fear, like, fear that if I don't do all of these things that somehow I feel guilty that I haven't done all the things to sign my kids up for all the things. That's not guilt. That's like, I'm really afraid that if I don't do these things, they won't keep up with their friends, they won't be successful, they won't have the access, and then they will end up homeless. I mean, the mother's brain goes down that
That's
rabbit
right.
hole, and so much I think of this, and I wanna really hold this for parents, is coming from such a place of love because we are so afraid of what could happen to our children that we think, "How can we control it?"
Absolutely.
And we can't, but that feeling is so strong that I think a lot of these things where we overparent come from a place of, "Let me control for as much as I can possibly control for."
Mhm.
Until the point of exhaustion, so that if something bad happens or so that nothing bad can happen,
So
but
that nothing bad can
so
happen.
that
That's right.
nothing bad can happen, but of course, it's just not true. It's
That's
just
just not true and not possible. And I think also, for me, that's why, independent play is my mission, right? Because not only is it teaching families about independent play, because not only is it so valuable for kids, right, for so many reasons, but it's valuable for the whole family because it gives mom, dad, caregiver back time to themselves to regroup, to ground, to do what they need to do. And then they can come back, right, and connect with their kids in the way they want to show up.
Yeah.
Whereas if you're controlling everything all the time and you're signing them up for everything and you're running yourself ragged, it is not possible to not snap at your kids, to not
Yeah.
yell at everyone, to not lose your mind because like h- it's not possible.
So I'm curious, how do you get parents over the hump when kids have been programmed and entertained and maybe on the phone?
Right.
And
Totally.
then you try and sort of switch it, right? Because they are gonna resist so strongly. I mean, they are gonna kick and
And that is their job.
yeah,
And that is their absolute job, right? We want to raise kids who push back.
yeah,
And so, and like if someone came up to me and yanked my phone out of my hand and told me to go, knit or something that I don't know how to do,
yeah,
like I would resist also. And so, number one, I'm always telling families, like, you can always start where you are. I don't even care if your kid is like 9 and they have been an iPad kid their whole entire life.
yep,
But I think, like, the myth of independent play is that you're just gonna take the thing away and tell your kids to go play, and they're gonna do it. And if they don't or they can't, then that must mean, like, they're just not cut out for this. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. And instead, I think what we wanna do is invite more play into our homes, right? And so
mhm,
kids wanna be where we are, especially, like the 8 and under set. And so instead of sending your kid away to go play or even if your kid is really into the iPad, I would say sit down, look at the iPad with them. What do they love about it? Like, what's super interesting? Like, what characters do they love? What game do they love? And how can you recreate that with in real life play? And so, and you're going to say to them, like, you really love this. I'm not taking this away from you. I'm not going to say, like, you can never have this again, but I am going to say it's really important to do both. So, it looks like, let's just take like a 5-year-old kid or something who loves like video games where they're like jumping and bouncing and being powerful, you can really say like, feels so good to be so powerful in this game. Like, what are some ways we could be really powerful, at home in our play? Like, do you want to, come to the playground and like jump off the climber and to play this game there? Um, things like that where you can sort of recreate it. But also, it's just more about too, like, if they love those characters from that game, go get like some of the figurines from them, bring them into your kitchen where you are, and put out some Play Doh with them. Don't say anything. You're not telling them they have to play with it. You're just setting it out and giving them more opportunities for play. And that's how they start to practice without the resistance.
mhm. Oh gosh, it feels like so long since I've had kids of that age, you know? I'm battling with teenagers who do have phones.
Hmm.
And, and sometimes I think the hard part is, my kids love to play games, we play bananagrams and we play fishbowl and we do a lot of charades, but it involves also a lot of energy
Yeah.
from the parent, so that part is hard. So I just want to acknowledge that like it takes a lot of energy, but it's worth it, I think.
Well, because what happens is like it's front loading. It's
Mm,
energy up front. It's being really aware of what your values are, but it's also knowing that like the more you do it, the less you're gonna have to do it. Because the more you can just sort of like put out little things here and there that they're interested in to play with, the more they're gonna practice engaging, the less they're gonna need you. The more ability you have to step back out of their play, and that gives you more bandwidth to step into their life in a more present, intentional way.
yeah. I kind of feel like my kids are of that generation where they got the iPhone very young, and we didn't it wasn't yet in the conversation
Yep.
how damaging it was, right? And so I kind of feel like
Same.
the bus has left the station for me, on my kids, but this next generation, I think, is a lot more aware, and there's just a lot more understanding, and I hope for that generation that there's just a kind of collective resistance to just handing the kids the iPad
I
or the
do too.
iPhone.
And I agree with you because I have my high schooler and my college son, and for them again also like they got their phones on the early end, like it was less part of the conversation. But now I have a 12-year-old, and she's always like, but the big kids got phones by now, and why don't I have one? And I'm like, it's true, like it feels really unfair, but like
Yep.
we've learned new things and we make new choices, right?
Yeah.
But I do see a difference like with her friends than with theirs. Like by the time they were 12, everyone
Yep.
had phones. Also, it was the pandemic, but yeah.
But speaking of the pandemic, I feel like the pandemic reset the amount of time on screens that was normal.
Oh, yeah.
I remember listening to some study that said, high school teenagers are on their phones for 2 hours a day, and I was like, "Oh, 2 hours a day.
Right.
2 hours a
Right.
day. If my
Right.
kid's screen time was 2 hours, I would be over the moon." It was almost like 2 hours was a lot, and then it became like 8 hours during the pandemic, and so I think our expectations of what amount of time they're on there, or even us as adults, the amount of time that we're on our screens has completely changed. So it's hard, and I also think, a lot of this the point of Confessions of a B+ Mom is there's a lot of information out there, and there's a lot of information about all the things that are bad for our kids, and it can really make you feel like a total failure, even when you're trying so hard. And so I really think we don't have to be that good at parenting, honestly. Like, those kids are pretty resilient. I think it's like if you create a space that feels safe, where there's love, and you have a real relationship with your kids where you see them for who they are and they're able to tell you what they think and feel comfortable, like, you're doing an awesome job to all those parents.
That's right. And what
Doing
happens
an
when you're
awesome
being
job.
the A+ mom is that there's no room for that.
Yeah,
There is no room for that. Like, the door is closed on, like, making mistakes, taking risks, like,
right.
all of those things, and the truth of the matter is development-wise, like, your kids are gonna do those things anyway, and so you can either decide to leave the door open and be a partner with them and let them come to you and guide them, or you can focus on the A+, where they feel that they can only show you the A+ parts of them, and they
Yeah,
are alone in everything else, right? And I know that that is not how you show up in the world. It is absolutely not how I show up in the world. And it does. I often talk about, I also love how now, this next generation of kids, like, we're all raising like these girls to speak up and kids to, maybe not be as compliant and, all these things. But I will tell you, like, I've been raising my kids that way, for 15 years or 18 years. And, now I have middle schooler and high schooler. And honestly, it is uncomfortable sometimes. My kids aren't the kid that
yeah.
every teacher loves because they're not conforming. Are they respectful? I sure hope so.
Mhm.
But again, like, I can't control them in the world. I can only, you know, live my values out loud to them and hope that they'll make good decisions and know that there's going to be a lot of times when they don't. And I need to be able to be like, that's on them, not me. Like, I am not trying to get an A+ here. I am just trying to have a connected relationship with my kid.
Totally. You use the word compliant, and that's like the fundamental core of my parenting philosophy, which is compliance is not the goal.
It's not the goal, but
Because yeah,
that's messy. That does not look good in public. That does not look good at Thanksgiving dinner
yep,
with your in-laws. That and like, you know, and I think, like, as a parent, you need to be so aware of your values so that you can say to yourself when your kid is having a meltdown, like,
yep.
in public and you're embarrassed because it is normal to be embarrassed, that then you can have the wherewithal to yourself to be like, "It is normal that I'm embarrassed right now, and this doesn't mean I'm a bad mom."
Yeah, yeah, totally. I think that I was an exceptionally compliant child because I was very aware of what was expected of me, and it took me until, like, age 35
Yeah.
to recognize that my entire life had been mapping out exactly what people wanted me to be, and I just did that. And at 35, with 5 kids, I was like, "Who the hell am I?"
And this isn't gonna work.
This isn't gonna work. This isn't working for me anymore. And I remember this conversation I had with Tova Klein, who runs the Barnard Toddler Center, founded the Barnard Toddler Center, about one of my kids who was just like would refuse to do the thing he was supposed to do in the music class. It's like, and now kids, everyone get up and do this. And he would be like, nope.
Right.
And she was like, I love him. He knows exactly what he wants. It's the perfect ones we worry about. And I was like, oh my
Yep.
gosh.
She's at yep.
Was all I could think was, what am I doing wrong as a mom that my kid won't do what all the other kids wanna
'Cause
do?
that's what it feels like.
That's what it feels like. And I was like, "Oh, letting him tell me what he needs and what he wants and that he doesn't like this is the most amazingly valuable thing I can do for him as a mom, because I
That's
am
right.
not teaching him to override everything inside of him in favor of what other people expect of them.
Right. And like while you're on the music class example, it makes me think of like, when they give out all the shaky eggs or whatever, and the kids get upset and they say, like, you get what you get and you don't get upset. And I'm like, no, but like he is upset. Like, it doesn't mean he gets the other thing,
Yeah, but he's allowed to be upset.
but he's allowed to be upset about it, right? And we are, as a mom, are allowed to be like, oh, you're really disappointed you wanted that. I hope you get it next time.
Yep. Yep.
Like,
It's so true, but it's really hard. But it's really hard, and
it's
and
really hard and it's counterintuitive. You want your kid, listen, it feels easier, especially when they're little, like to want your kid to fit in, to want everything to just sort of go smoothly, right? But that's not what you want in the long run, right? And so we have to play the long game as parents, even though it's so exhausting and like so tiring.
the other part that's hard, and you have teenagers too, is I've really fostered an environment where I'm like, I want you to tell me the truth.
Yep,
I want you to tell me the truth. But that means also when they tell me the truth, I can't freak out, because if I
yeah,
freak out, they're just gonna be like, "I'm not gonna tell you." And I think a lot of the reason that kids lie is not because 'cause they're afraid of getting in trouble, it's because they're like, "My mom can't handle it, and
totally.
I'm protecting her, basically, from the truth."
Yes,
And
yes.
so sometimes they tell me things and I'm like, "It would be so much easier
Wait,
not
I
to."
have this. So my daughter comes home from middle school the other day and she's all like in a huff and she says, I got an F in music class today. And I was like, what happened? And she was like, we had to sing in front of the whole class. And I told the teacher that I'm not comfortable singing in front of the whole class. And the teacher said, well, you have to because it's part of your grade. And my daughter said, I don't have to do things that I feel this uncomfortable with. I'm not going to do it. Can I come in after school and do it? And the teacher said, no, like this is part of, the grade. And my daughter was like, well, I'm not doing it. And they were like, well, then we're going to have to call your mom and tell her that you're getting an F. And my daughter said, I think my mom would be okay with that. When she came home and told me that, I was like, I am okay with it. But also in my head, I was like, but did you say it respectfully or were you rude? Like, even though I'm like, literally, this is how I raised her. She did the thing that I would want her to do. And still, a small part of my brain was like, does the teacher not like her now? Do they not like me?
Yeah, yeah. No, I think that's right. I've had so many times where I've had to advocate for my kids. I do think it's important to be respectful, right? It's like you can always stand up for yourself, but there is a way to say things that's respectful. But also kids, when they're upset and they're standing up for themselves, sometimes it doesn't come out perfectly, but
Because it's
yeah,
messy and it's like a skill that as adults, like we still can't figure out. And so, yes. But I think for a lot of us as moms, our automatic setting is to be like, listen to the teacher,
yeah,
do what you're told. Don't be rude.
yeah. And then what that sets up is um adults with no agency.
Yeah.
You know? And it's so interesting because I see some adults who are out in the world doing things and they just don't give up, right? They're like, "I
Yeah.
don't care that you think," I mean, it's a terrible example, but like Elon Musk, he's like, "I'm gonna do what I'm gonna do," right? And so, like, I'm not saying I want my kids to be like that, but I want them to have a little bit more of that than I had. Like,
Yeah.
I go out into the world and I do things and I think, "What can I do that's not gonna upset anybody?"
Right.
Because I'm so uncomfortable with that feeling of somebody not liking me or not thinking well of me. And I'm actually really trying to undo that because it's made me sort of tentative, risk averse, and afraid. And I
Yes.
don't want my kids to be risk averse and tentative out in the world, always scanning and solving for, but is this going to upset somebody?
That's right. But that's why I connected and loved your voice note so much because it really brings it back to like when we model B plus parenting, not A plus parenting, we're modeling like, listen, you try your best, you try to be respectful, but you also, are not doing anything perfectly. We're
Yeah.
doing the best we can with love and kindness as much as we can. And listen, there's also going to be days where like I'm going to lose my shit and I'm going to yell at everyone and and yes, I really hope I come back and repair and say like, "Hey, I lost my shit. I had taken on too much. Like, I'm sorry and I hope I don't do that next time." Probably I might, like, because I'm still learning too. And that's something too, like, I am always saying to my kids, and they roll their eyes, and especially now that they're big, but I'm always saying to them, like, hey, I'm new at this too. I am still learning how to be the mom of an 18-year-old. I am still learning how to parent, even, yes, have I parented a 12-year-old before twice? Yes, but I've never parented you before at 12
Right.
years old. So I am still learning also. It's a process.
Yeah, and I do that too. Actually think it's incredibly important to show your human side to your kids. Like, I think we're trying to when we talk about I think we try t sometimes we think that's modeling an ideal,
Right. And
and
that's
it's
not what
not.
I mean. No.
No, it's
I
not.
mean, like, modeling, like, even for your, like, toddlers being like, "Oh my gosh, I forgot the wipes. Oops, I'm gonna ask another grown up at the playground if I can borrow theirs." Like, instead of shamefully being like, "Oh my god, I forgot the wipes. Like, what is wrong with me? Like, I need to ask someone, but I need to do it in secret so no one knows I forgot the wipes." Like,
Yeah.
because that's what it feels like. But when you can be like to your kid, "I forgot the wipes. Oh my goodness, what am I gonna do? Like, I'm gonna ask someone for help." Like, that's the kind of modeling
Yeah,
that our kids need.
I actually do this thing with my older kids, especially my oldest son, where we're really, really different, you know? He's like an artist, he's super disorganized, and he kinda goes with the flow, and I'm, like, very methodical, I'm a little bit OCD, and so sometimes his habits just make me so nervous
Mhm.
because 'cause I'm like, "This is not the way you're gonna get to where you need to be." So I'll walk into his room and I'll be, like, yelling at him, and I'll be yelling at him for his room being so messy, and then in the middle of it, I'll switch and I'll be like, "And I'm yelling at you for your room being messy because it actually just makes me really uncomfortable, and the truth is, it's just my fear that you're gonna go out into the world and you're not gonna be able to, like, pay your rent and do those things, and I know you're going to be able to. And so I am completely overreacting to
Yes.
something that is
Yes.
small, that has nothing to do with what I'm reacting to do but everything to do with my overall fears for you because I just love you so much and I want you to have a great life."
But,
And
like,
he'll like,
could you imagine your parents ever doing that?
"Never,
'Cause I could not.
never."
And that just to me is, like, so valuable and loving and, like, makes me just picture your son being able to come to you because, like.
He pats me on the head and he's like, "It's okay, mom. I understand.
Yeah,
You're fearful because you love me."
yeah,
He's so sweet about it. But I think that the thing is, what I try to do the reason I know it's so important to do that is because the alternative just shames the kid. Like, all they get when you're like, "Can you like, your room?" Like, all they get when you don't allow that entire backstory to be revealed to them, all they get is shame, criticism, you know? And especially with my girls, I noticed that a lot of my stuff that's fear comes out as criticism to them.
totally. Yeah,
"Why are you?" Or, "Again, you keep doing," and, like, listen, I'm super, super, super not perfect about this. I do this all the time. I'm like, "Oh, shit, I did that thing
yeah.
again," where I criticized her for something that, like, I didn't need to criticize her for, but it has to do with something that it triggered inside of me that makes me worried for her about something that's gonna happen to her. So I really try to and then I'll go back and I'll be like, when I say those things, this is what I mean." But again, like, there's a reason that
I mean,
it all
having.
comes out wrong as
Yeah.
y
It's like what I feel like when you have your kids, when you're first becoming a mom, it's really such like a rebirth for you as a human. You become just this totally different person inside. But then I think like having teens again, especially because it's after that latency period where your kids are like 7, 8, 9, and like things are easier. And then you have teenagers, and then it's like again, you have this like rebirth of learning about
y
who they are, what it means to be their parent, what it means to be like a person in the world yourself. I have learned so much from my teens. I mean, it blows my mind. They blow my mind on the daily.
I agree, and sometimes they feel like you're walking through a tunnel of fire with the teens,
Oh
but
God.
also, I feel like I have a real relationship with them. Like, we're friends.
Right.
I know them, they know me, and I'm excited for the way the relationship is gonna build and grow as they become adults because I am determined that they are not going to have the same reaction that a lot of people have to their parents, which is like, "My parents are needy, they're difficult," you know? I want them to want to be around me, and I wanna be around them because 'cause they're just, like, very interesting humans.
They are, and their
Nope.
friends are interesting, and the dynamic is so cool because 'cause you're, like, starting to really see who
Yeah.
they're becoming.
Yeah, yeah. But the part that's really hard about that is that you have to also be able to see the parts of them that are true
Mhm.
that you wish weren't true.
Right,
You're
and
like,
the
"I
ones that,
can."
like, you
Yeah,
didn't predict. Like, you didn't predict and you didn't choose, and that's who they are, and so you get to choose now, like, if you want to embrace that and
yeah,
how you're gonna approach that because you're not changing them.
yeah, yeah. Right, you can either decide to see them for who they are and have a relationship with them, or hold on to who you wanted them to be and not have a
And
relationship.
not. Right,
Those are the 2 choices, you
right.
know? And, but it's hard. But it's hard because there are so much about who they are that triggers hopes and dreams that you had, mostly fears, mostly fears.
Which
I don't
then
think
comes back to what we started with, which it comes all from such a place of love.
it does. Yeah, yeah. But I think you can screw it up so many times and still do an amazing job.
And every time you screw up, you're modeling for them that, like, you can screw up and come back at it. Like,
Yeah,
it's not over. It's
yeah,
never over.
yeah.
You can get back up.
Yeah. Amazing. We're gonna close it there because I feel like that's the message, right? You can always come back no matter where you are, no matter what mistakes you've made, because if you haven't made them, I don't know who you are. You're not a human being. That's all part and parcel, and actually all of those mistakes are a gift in some way and can be a gift in some way. We got to think of it that way because they're inevitable. So I hope that listeners, we leave you with that, with feeling more empowered in whatever you're doing to feel like you're doing a great job. And maybe you need to try less hard. More hard.
Do less. Do less.
Do do less. Thank you so much, Lizzie, for being with me. If you have not already, pre-order Lizzie's book. I have done so already, and I hope
Mhm.
you all do. If you're not following Workspace for Children, please do. If you're interested in voice notes from a friend, please subscribe. And thanks so much, Lizzie. I hope you have an
This was a
awesome rest of the
great
day.
conversation. Thank you
I,
so much.
I appreciate you. Take care.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.